What used to be the number one fear that everybody had was dying. Now, the number one fear is outliving your money and not having the ability to have the quality of life that you once had during those later years of your life. Hello, and welcome to Investing in Faith. I'm your host, Michael Wallin, certified financial planner who's helped thousands of clients over the last 30 years to create certainty during uncertain times. On today's show, we're going to answer the question, is paying for a financial advisor prior to and throughout your retirement years worth the cost? The answer to that question is maybe. Let's take a look at the research and see what that shows us, what the problems that are facing clients are today, and then ultimately, what are the solutions to resolve those problems? Vanguard's well-known research estimates that working with an advisor increases the annual rate of return between 200 and 300 basis points. That's 2 to 3% annual better performance. Now compound that over a number of years, and that will help guide a client to a higher probability of success during their retirement years. The majority of this stems from behavioral coaching, which constitutes between 1.5% and 2% of that improvement by the advisor being able to assist the client in navigating during those uncertain times, helping them to understand and stay focused on that long-term investing goal. Another complementary study is the Russell Investment's Canadian study, which shows a 2.88% improved performance on your investment account when you're using an advisor. Each of these studies show the value, but really we have to address the problem. And what is the problems that is out there facing clients today? What used to be the number one fear that everybody had was dying. Now, the number one fear is outliving your money and not having the ability to have the quality of life that you once had during those later years of your life. A second fear is a lot of people out there no longer have pensions. As we see a downward trend of pensions occurring today, we can look back to 1980 where we had nearly 100,000 defined benefit plans. And then as we look into 2000, 20 years ago, that number had dropped down to 35,000 defined benefit plans. Those plans that allowed a consumer, a worker, to be able to have a guaranteed structured income all the way through their retirement years. That guaranteed income is becoming extinct. So let's take a look at the problem that many pre-retirees and retirees are facing today, and you may even be facing some of these challenges yourself. When I first began in the industry over 30 years ago, studies would always show that the number one fear that people had was actually dying. Nowadays, that study shows that the number one fear that most Americans today are facing is the fear of actually outliving their assets. And that really stems from a secondary problem that we're going to address on the show today, is that pensions are on a decline. If we look back to 1980, there were nearly 100,000 pensions that companies offered to their employees that gave them guaranteed structured income, something that employee could rely upon during their retirement years to have income sustainable and be able to meet that need and live that quality of life that they always wanted. Now, if we move forward and look at the trending of those defined benefit plans from 1980 to 2000, we see that there was only 35,000 of those pensions left. That was 65,000 companies decided to drop their pension plans. That left a lot of pre-retirees and retirees as they were moving forward with uncertainty on where they were going to be able to generate enough income to live that quality of life they've always wanted. Another problem that a lot of retirees and pre-retirees are facing today is the rumors that Social Security benefits in 2031 will be reduced. So compound the fact of a lot of retirees today no longer have a pension, along with a potential or possible situation where their retirement benefits are going to be decreased on their Social Security. Now they're fully dependent upon those retirement assets they've saved up, maybe in a 401k, maybe in a 403b, maybe in a savings plan. But now that money has to last at least as long as they do. Compound that with the political changes and what we're seeing on policy changes coming out of Washington, D.C., around tariffs. That changes a lot of what we're seeing in the equity markets. We're seeing a higher volatility. We're also seeing increased cost of goods and services that we're dependent upon. Now, when you compound all of that together, it leaves that consumer, and this may be you that's listening to the show today, with a fear of making a mistake. This is where a financial advisor really has the ability to come in, help you navigate through those uncertain times, actually build a plan that works for you, that has a strategy that can be reviewed on an ongoing basis. So again, we're still at the point, is a financial advisor worth the cost? We're still at maybe, but you have to navigate through and determine what kind of a financial advisor are you hiring. Is this an individual that comes in and has a single solution, a product salesman that comes in and says, all of your problems can fit very nicely in the product that I have to sell? Well, if that's the financial advisor you're working with, I would probably say that you're not getting the full benefit for the cost of that financial advisor. But if you're working with somebody that is a fiduciary, an individual that's holding your best interest in the forefront of all the relationship that y'all have, if they're looking at how a collaborative effort between maybe the tax preparer, maybe an attorney, as well as their efforts collaboratively are working to put you in the highest probability of success, now you're getting to a solution that is warranting the value of the cost that you're paying for those professional services. As a client, you need to take a multidimensional approach. It's not always about how much money you're making. It's more important about how much of that money are you able to keep. So when we look at a tax smart investment plan, it's not just about making the money, but how are we able to do that and generate the most alpha return for you while mitigating the amount of tax exposure you have and allowing that plan to provide the ample amount of income you need over the next 5, 10, or maybe 20 years of your retirement. Now, in our practice, we focus on a 4-bucket approach, and I found that to work very well for a lot of our clients. One of the areas is we need to make sure that you have sustainable income as you go into retirement, maybe for the first 5 years. And the amount of money that is allocated to that bucket has a very limited exposure to the amount of risk that the market may bring. Then you take another look at a bucket of money that is going to grow for the next 5 years and then turn into an income stream that is going to provide for you maybe for the next 6 to 10 years. That bucket of money can't have a lot of risk on it, but it can have a little bit of risk exposure in today's market. You may get as high a return as a 6% annual return. Then we take a look at the third bucket. Now, this is a bucket where we can start getting a little bit more equity exposure into those portfolios. And that bucket of money is going to grow for the next 10 years. We can go through the peaks and troughs of the market. We don't have to be concerned about tactical management per se to get in or out of the market in a timely manner, but to be able to stay consistent on that investing strategy. Then the fourth bucket, that's our long-term bucket. That's money that we're probably not going to touch for 15 to 20 years from now. We can stay fully invested in it and still take an aggressive investment strategy, much like we did during your accumulation phase of your life. So when you actually take the resources that you have and you spread them out, you're able to mitigate the amount of risk against your portfolio while allowing that to be able to provide you the returns necessary to give you the highest probability of success prior to and throughout your retirement years. Now, that approach may be right for some of you that are listening to the show today, and for others, it may not be. Building out a unique investment plan, retirement plan, tax plan, insurance plan, estate plan, all of those components is wrapped up into a comprehensive financial plan. in determining whether or not that advisor is worth their cost is to ask them about their process flow. Show me the steps of how you're going to communicate with me, how you're going to manage the assets that I entrust with you or the plans that we are executing. And then ultimately, what is the periodic review process so that we can have tactical and strategic plans so that as uncertainty happens, we can pivot when those times come where we can either take advantage of opportunities in the market or go defensive to protect against situations that could have long-term negative impacts in achieving our retirement or investment goals. 5 key takeaways from today's show. Quantifiable uplift. Most of these studies and what we have found and what I have seen with working with clients over the last 30 years is that we can add roughly 3% to your annual performance in your investing strategies. Number 2, behavioral coaching is the largest driver, preventing emotionally driven mistakes. Number 3, additional value comes from tax planning, disciplined rebalancing, low-cost products, and tailored allocation. Number 4, holistic and emotional value, peace of mind, goal alignment, and holistic planning are deeply valued but harder to quantify. And number 5, long-term impact. Every incremental percent in return compounded substantially over years, translating to significantly higher net worth and goal attainment. If some of the problems that I discussed on today's show, or even if you have explored solving some of those problems but feel that it's one-dimensional, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll be happy to send you more information that will help you address some of those fears that you still may be facing. If you liked the topic of today's show and would like to learn more, tune in next week as we continue to create certainty during uncertain times.
Optavise Advisory Services, LLC, Optavise, is an investment advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, under the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. Registration as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. The oral and written communications of an advisor provide you with information about which you determine to hire or retain an advisor. For more information, visit https://advisor.info.sec.gov and search for our firm name. This presentation has been provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as legal or investment advice or a recommendation of any particular security or strategy. The investment strategy and themes discussed herein may be unsuitable for investors depending on their specific investment objectives and financial situation. Information obtained from third-party sources is believed to be reliable, though its accuracy is not guaranteed. Opinions expressed in this commentary reflect subjective judgments of the author based on conditions at the time of publication and are subject to change without notice. Past performance is not indicative of future results.